Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. And today, we are diving into the idea of success, like what actually allows people to make things happen.
Right.
We've got this really interesting mix of ideas and excerpts about passion, hard work, taking risks, and even like how to be resilient when things get tough.
Yeah.
Basically, we want to figure out like what are the big takeaways here, so we can apply them to our own lives.
Right. For you, the listener.
Totally.
Some practical advice from all these different thinkers and doers.
Right. And so, have you ever wondered if there's more to success than just being lucky or being naturally gifted?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because a lot of times you see somebody who's achieved something really amazing.
Yeah.
And you think like, oh, they must just gotten all the breaks, or they're just like super talented.
Right. Like they were just born that way.
Yeah. And these sources actually push back against that pretty hard.
Yeah. And so that's exactly what we're going to dig into. And so one of the first things that jumped out at me was this idea that success isn't like, something you're just born with.
Right.
It's something that comes from the choices you make.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like a perfect example from the sources is Jeff Bezos, right? Like the guy leaves this cushy, stable Wall Street job to start Amazon in his garage.
Right. It's such a classic story. Right.
Total classic startup story.
But it really shows you like the power of going after what you really, are excited about.
Yeah. And like it makes you think about, the difference between just having a job to pay the bills, right?
Right.
Versus building a career to get ahead versus like really pursuing what you feel called to do.
Yeah, like what's your purpose?
Totally. And the sources really suggest that like when you are passionate about something and you feel like it's your purpose, then that it's way stronger than just wanting to be comfortable or whatever.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we get into this whole like nature versus nurture thing.
Right.
Like hard work versus natural talent.
Yeah. One of the big themes here is that like talent by itself is not enough.
Right.
It's really about practice, persistence, putting in the work.
Right.
And hard work, it helps you become an expert over time, but also it makes you resilient.
Yeah.
Because you're going to hit roadblocks, you're going to make mistakes, and you got to be able to bounce back.
Yeah, and it's interesting because one of the excerpts I read was talking about like, wasted potential.
Oh, yeah.
And it's kind of like, you can have all the talent in the world, but if you don't do anything with it,
right?
Like what good is it?
It's like having a Ferrari and leaving it in the garage.
Right. Exactly.
You got to take it out on the track.
Totally. And the sources really emphasize that like getting things done. Like execution is more important than just having these brilliant ideas.
Yeah. It's about shipping.
Yeah.
It's about getting it out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's one thing to have a good idea. It's another thing to make it happen.
Absolutely. And so I feel like that kind of leads us into this discussion of failure.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Because like you were saying, you're going to hit roadblocks.
Yeah. Right.
You're not always going to succeed.
Right.
And so how do you deal with that?
Yeah. And what's interesting here is that, the sources suggest that people who are really successful, they tend to see failure as a learning opportunity.
Right. It's not the end of the world.
It's not the end.
It's just part of the process.
Exactly. It's data. It's information. It's like, okay, what can I learn from this and do better next time?
Right. And so you could actually use it to like, improve and get better.
Yeah. And like the sources talk about how the people who just keep working hard, even if they're not the most talented at the beginning,
right,
they can often surpass the people who are naturally gifted but give up too easily.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because it's like you're constantly learning and evolving.
Totally.
And so that kind of brings us to this other big theme, which is like, overcoming adversity and taking risks.
Oh, yeah, that's huge, right?
Because it seems like from these sources, like success is rarely a straight line.
No, it's always messy.
It's always messy.
It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes 3 steps back.
Exactly. And so many of the people who've, accomplished amazing things, they've had to deal with like tons of rejection.
Tons of it, yeah. Like for you, the listener, I mean, think about any field you're interested in, right? Whether it's music or business or art or whatever.
Right.
People who are at the top of their game, they got there by facing a lot of no's before they got to the yeses.
Right. And the sources really emphasize that you have to be willing to take risks.
You got to put yourself out there.
Yeah. Like, step outside of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And that's how you grow.
Right.
Right. Both as a person and like in your professional life.
And I think that that's so true because like so many of us get held back by this fear of failure.
Oh, yeah. Fear is a huge thing.
Right. And the sources talk about how like embracing risk can actually open up all these like new opportunities that you never would have seen otherwise.
Yeah, it's like when you're afraid to do something, you're actually closing yourself off to all these possibilities.
Yeah, exactly. And I thought it was really interesting, one of the sources talked about Jeff Bezos's regret minimization framework.
Yeah.
Which is basically making decisions based on what you'll regret not doing later.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would your 80-year-old self tell you?
Right, exactly. And I think that's so powerful because like so many of us are afraid to take risks because we're afraid of like, what if it doesn't work out?
Right, or what if people judge me, or what if I fail?
Right, but like what if you regret not doing it?
Exactly.
That's a whole other perspective.
Yeah, and the sources are also very encouraging in the sense that like now is always the best time to start going after your goals.
Right.
Like don't wait for perfect conditions.
They're never gonna come.
They're never gonna come. You just gotta jump in and figure it out as you go.
Totally. And I feel like that kind of ties into this whole idea of like innovation.
Oh yeah.
Because like the world is constantly changing, right?
Absolutely.
And so to be successful, like you have to be able to adapt and change with it.
Yeah. You can't just rest on your laurels.
Right. You got to be willing to like, come up with new ideas and new ways of doing things.
Right. And for you, the listener, it's like, think about any industry that's been around for a while, right? Like the music industry or the movie industry or whatever.
Right.
The people who've stayed successful are the ones who've been able to innovate,
Right.
to change with the times, to find new ways to create value.
And that's kind of scary in a way, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like you constantly have to be pushing yourself.
Yeah, it is, but it's also exciting, right?
Right. It's like it's a part of the fun.
Exactly.
And, inevitably when you're putting yourself out there and you're trying new things, you're going to get criticized.
You're going to get some haters.
Right. Like it's just part of the deal.
Part of the deal, yeah.
And I think it was really interesting how the sources talked about criticism. Because like they didn't say like, oh, just ignore it.
Right.
They said like use it.
Yeah, see it as feedback.
Right. See it as a way to get better.
Absolutely. And I think that's really important for you, the listener, because it's so easy to get discouraged when people are negative.
Oh, yeah.
You know? But if you can kind of reframe it and be like, okay, how can I learn from this? How can I improve?
Right.
Then it becomes less about like, oh, they're attacking me, and more about like, oh, this is an opportunity for me to grow.
Right. And the sources also talked about this idea that like, true success isn't just about making a ton of money.
Right. Right. It's about creating value.
It's about making a difference in the world.
Exactly. It's about doing something you're passionate about, and that helps other people.
Right. And so like when you put all of this together,
Yeah.
it seems like, success is really about, loving what you do, putting in the effort, being resilient.
Yeah. Having the courage to take risks.
And being willing to learn and grow from your mistakes.
Absolutely. And I think like if you can kind of embrace all of those things, then you're setting yourself up for, not just success, but like a really fulfilling life.
Right, because it's not just about reaching the destination.
Right.
It's about enjoying the journey.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so like as we kind of wrap up this deep dive into success, I want to leave you, the listener, with like one final question. Like, are you actually, putting your passions first?
Yeah. Are you going after the things that really light you up?
Right. And are you like embracing the risks that come with that?
Because if you're not, then you might be missing out on like some amazing opportunities.
And so like maybe just think about like what's one small step that you could take today
Right.
that might feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah. Put yourself out there a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
But that could like lead you towards, what you really want to achieve.
Yeah. You never know what might happen.
Exactly. And that's something to ponder.
Lots to think about.
Thanks for diving deep with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here.
And we'll see you next time.